So if you're sitting at home in your home office wondering, are you running your virtual sales calls in the right way? If you're sitting at home wondering, why are customers right now reluctant to commit? And what is it that we can influence? What is it that we can do? Or if you sit at home and said, I'm not sure if it's right on how I'm selling this virtual piece and how am I engaging with my customer in this new world, you're right here, and it's the right time, it's the right place. The topic for today is selling virtually, and funnily enough, as it says in the title slide, outside your comfort zone. You know, since a couple of months, we're facing a new unprecedented situation. It's been well documented, well discussed. Don't really want to go into it. Everybody's in it. It's new to us. What we can't change is the situation around us. The pandemic, the whole crisis that we're in right now. What we can change, however, is how we respond to it. Like in every crisis, there is always two parts. There's a danger part and an opportunity part. And we need to challenge ourselves, getting out of our comfort zone in order to focus on what we can influence. We decide what we focus on, and what we can focus on and how we can respond to this is really how we adapt to it and how we deliver our day-to-day work, in this case, the virtual sales calls, to the best of our knowledge and to the best of our ability. I'm sure, like yourselves, I have seen a number of different webinars on different topics in your home office. You have a little bit more time available to look into these different presentations and so forth. And I'm sure, just like you, I've seen some good ones and some really bad ones. And I want to make sure we do the first one. The good ones for me were, personally, when I could take one or two really interesting tips with me for myself that I can immediately apply and use and say, yep, I haven't thought of that before. That is something I will try out and will implement. That is my goal. Thanks to the kind introduction of David, my name is Harry Kendelbacher. I'm the CEO of Global Performance Group. We implement behavior change approaches within organizations for people to fundamentally have a different, thought-provoking, courageous dialogue with their clients. Now, that is all of the pitch today. Let's dive right into the topic. Think about it. Think about the best virtual sales call that you have had. Either you've had yourself, or you have attended, you have listened to, or the best virtual sales call that maybe somebody else has done. What are the things that this person who has led and done that virtual sales call, what have they done really, really well to make it that brilliant sales call? First of all, they really knew the technology. There wasn't any long holdups with things. It wasn't awkward pauses. It was smooth. It flew well. That person really knew the technology, right? That person really planned for it. Why had that come across? It came across because it sounded really precise. It sounded down to the point. It sounded they have really grabbed people's attention and got them to focus on something that they wanted them to focus on. And they have differentiated themselves in the process. In addition to that, that fabulous virtual sales calls got the customer, already an existing customer or a new prospect, doesn't really matter, got them to think of something different that they haven't thought of before, and therefore got them to consider different things, right? Now, those 6 points, they sound like a pretty good sales call, right? A pretty good virtual engaging sales call. I got to know my tech, I got to plan, I got to grab attention, differentiate, get them to think, and get them to consider. That's pretty straightforward. Now, I'm convinced that everybody knows that intellectually. You don't need me or anybody else to tell you those things. You know those things already. how come that we don't do it? How come that we don't do it on a consistent basis? How come we don't execute these 6 points to precision on that limited time during a virtual call that we have? Well, because there is a lot of pressure around us right now, a lot of different influences right now. There is pressures from customers who are not buying. That influences us. There's pressure from being in a home office where maybe kids are running around and you got to multitask because you got to handle your partner or the kids homeschooling. There is tension because, quite honestly, you want to break out because you want to travel to see your client again. There's pressure on the numbers. All these different pressures, all these different stresses create a certain level of tension in us. That tension is a physical reaction to stress and pressure. That tension makes us feel uncomfortable. Our brain is thousands of years old, and when we feel and experience that tension, when we feel it in our bodies, the adrenaline kicks in, we get sweaty hands and sweaty palms maybe, we get nervous, our face turns red. There's a number of different ways of how we see it. When we experience tension, because of our brain is so old, we have basically 2 responses, which is I either run away or stay and fight. I run away by falling back into my comfort zone, doing and making up my sales call the way I think, or the way I think it could be, or the way I have done this, or I'm under intense pressure and fight the issue and get even more nervous and do even more things wrong. So the key and the goal really is, how do I reside in that tension? How do I not fall back into my comfort zone of doing it the way I've done before and build up the courage to get back into what we call the virtual selling arena, where I execute those few things in the middle really, really well. The interesting part is we know this stuff in the middle all intellectually. We get it in our head. We're smart people. We know all that. But we're not doing it because we're dripping back, falling back into our comfort zone because of that thing called tension, because of the pressure around us, because of the stress that we're currently experiencing. So here you already have, funnily enough, the schedule of today. We're going to look at 6 different topics. How do you actually run the virtual sales call? How do you grab people's attention via virtually? How do you differentiate yourself? How do you get them to think differently, get them to consider, and how do you close effectively for action? It's a mixture of running the call from a logistical and technical perspective and the take control and engaging the skills portion of things. Right, let's get right into the first part of it. How do you run a sales call? It's been a virtual sales call. It's been interesting. We have interviewed a number of participants now. Wow, it's in the hundreds now. I see. Fabulous. Thank you again. Participating today. We've interviewed a number of them, and some people said, actually, a couple of head of sales conversations I remember said, well, you know, we've been doing this now for a couple of months. I'm not really interested in the technology side of things and how people are running it. I'm more interested in the skills part. Well, my experience is different. I have been on many virtual sales calls with salespeople, coaching them, helping them on how do they really engage. And let me tell you something, they are in their comfort zone. They are in their comfort zone of how they run it. They don't do it well at all. So I've decided that we are including this topic into this webinar now. Now, how to run, not ton, run. Here is a spelling mistake, fun, virtual sales call. Rule number 1, I've got to know the technology. Rule number 2, I've got to plan for it more than I would usually do. And I know salespeople, we hate it and I've got to take control and engage. These are the 3 rules we are going to take through right now. So let's go into rule numero uno. Rule number 1 is know your tech. You'd be surprised how many people don't know their technology of the virtual sales call. Listen, there are a number of different platforms out there. We're using Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype, Adobe Connect, what have you, whatever they are all called. It is astounding to me that people's lack of knowing their platform. First of all, you got to know your own platform. You got to know it inside out. You got to know how to navigate it. But also, sometimes the customer or a prospect or whoever you are doing the virtual sales call has their own platform. People, get to know it, understand it, research it. Takes 15 minutes. Get a tryout. Download the app beforehand. What have you. You do not want any issues with any platform. It just comes across so unbelievable, unprofessional. When I reviewed this yesterday before today, I was thinking, should I really put this in? And then I had another sales call where people didn't know how to use their microphone. People, put it on, obviously, test it beforehand. If it doesn't work very clearly, get a headset, get a microphone, a good quality one. Nothing worse than distracting and breaking up at a point of your customer presentation where you need to tell the story, where you need to make your pitch, whatever, and the sound breaks up. This has got to work. This has got to smooth. Put your camera on. Put it on. When your customer doesn't have a camera on, ask them to put it on. It is amazing to me how many people are trying to run a virtual sales call and not putting their camera on, and then complain about, oh, it's so difficult to create relationship. Well, what's missing virtually? There's a real well-known research, and I'm sure you've heard some of them, and a recent update has come out of that exactly the same stats and numbers are the same for a virtual presentation. And the research says basically, what is the 100% ideal communication? It's broken down into 3 levels: body language, the tone of voice, and the actual words you're using. And the research says, in terms of importance, your body language is the most important element of any part of communication, of any virtual, of any conversation, really. Tone of voice, how you vary how you project your voice. With some important pieces, you can lower your voice a little bit, or when you want to make a point, be more engaged and raise your voice a little bit. It doesn't really matter a lot, according to this research, 7% of actually what we say. Carol Ginzengoma, author of The Nonverbal Advantage, recommends that during a virtual meeting, sit up straight, put your feet on the floor, sit up taller. Your image is getting bigger through your camera. You will project your voice. Posture will shape the way you feel and also helps you to connect with others better in a virtual environment. Smile, use your facial expressions. I don't let it count when people say, oh, virtual calls, the body language is lost. Absolutely not. Being passionately engaged with what you sell, and not necessarily always what you sell, how you engage with people, how you talk with people makes a huge, huge difference. Babson College conducted a study which analyzed verbal and nonverbal behavior of more than, I think it was 200-ish professional sales pitches. And what they found is that the strongest indicator and the strongest reasons of who was awarded the deal or was awarded the money in this case was not the person's credential, not the person's pitch, not the content of their pitch, but their confidence and passionate enthusiasm. If we don't switch on our camera, all of this stuff gets lost, and I only have my voice and my words. Switch it on. Get your client to switch it on too. Sharing, when you do a virtual sales call, we want to share a PowerPoint, we want to share a video, a application. Know how to find it. Have you been on the sales call where people say, oh, well, where is the button to share this? Where is that? No, it's in the middle bit here on Zoom, right next to where it says participants. I can't see it. No, where is it? Know this stuff, all right? When you want to share an application or PowerPoint, know how the flow was. When you move it into presentation mode. A lot of people have a laptop and a separate screen with a separate camera in their office. Where is the presenter's view? Where is the view for the participant? Who can see what? You got to know this stuff. Any second that you lose in that sales call, you lose the attention of your potential buyer. If you want to share a video, test the sound. Nothing worse than when you can see the screen and the sound is going down the tube. It is not good. Backgrounds, oh my God, unbelievable. Nobody wants to see your messy kitchen. I'm not suggesting that you have a messy kitchen. Having said that, I have been on a number of sales calls where the camera points into a place that you just don't want to see. I understand that there are room physical restrictions. Not everybody has a separate room in their home office. I get it. They're in Zoom, they're on Microsoft Teams and another background. You can put backgrounds on, just like the one I have. I put it on so that you don't see my messy office, clearly. It's a nice opportunity also to put your logo in the background and your tagline or your marketing piece. You can, if you don't have to put a nice mountain out of your area, you cannot imagine how often people have commented, oh, that looks very professional, what you have there in the background. Oh, that's a nice mountain. Where is that lake from, right? It's a nice way of building the relationship, and it just appears very, very professional. Now, of course, backgrounds suck a little bit off your internet speed and so forth. They take a little bit of space up. If you have low bandwidth, right, then invest in a little banner. One of these pop-up banner with the company's logo up there. They're really cheap. If some marketing people are listening today, that's a great way for people's home office. Pop it up, covers up a messy kitchen, looks highly professional, right? Appear professional with the background. Obviously, needless to say, count out the noise, and we are trying to do everything to do that. I cannot tell you how often I've been on the sales calls and they have their window open. Cars are going by, sirens are going by, the ambulance is going by. Come on, cut out the noise. Now, of course, we're at home. Some people have kids at home. The other day I had a presentation with about 10 people on the call, and I had my son coming in asking for his basketball where it is. It can happen, but be proactive with it. I invited him to say, come in, hey guys, here's my son, his name is Matt Boy, nice to meet you. Now go and find your basketball. Everybody understands, but be natural around it. And if any noise that you can cut out, cut out. Fabulous. Now, next step on the virtual sales calls, we know how now rule number one, which is knowing your tech. The next step is plan for it. And then we're gonna taking control. Planning is something we hate. People who engage with clients, salespeople or client engagement people, whatever your role is. Salespeople hate to plan. Why? It is a waste of time. We're rather in front of our client. We rather want to engage. We rather want to have a chat. We are used to being confident. We're used to making things up as we go along. In your virtual meeting, you need to plan for the flow. You need to anticipate everything that could go wrong. You need to come across and appear like a well-oiled machine. It's got to work like clockwork. So when you plan for the flow, plan a before, a during, and after the meeting. And this is not about the skills. This is about the flow. So how does that go? Let's take a look at before the meeting, what I can do. Send an invite. You think this is basic? You'd be surprised how many people don't do it. Send an invite. Is clear with your login detail of your virtual platform. have a plan B. How often has it happened where people said, sorry, my bandwidth, my internet is down. I can't, I haven't downloaded the app of Zoom and I can't log in. Have a plan B, be prepared. Put your presentation that you want to share into an email, ready to send off with the addressee in the topic and the subject line, ready to press. Put their phone number in your phone so that if they say, well, I can't log in, I'm having technical troubles, they will have this stuff in 30 seconds and you are on the other line. Time is of an essence. Have a plan B. Send pre-meeting materials. Here we're coming back to the planning that salespeople don't like to do. How professional is that? Send an agenda, stuff that you like to cover. Ask them for what they would like to cover in addition. Send any pre-work if it's necessary. Create a message of, this is my expectations, what are your expectations? Assign roles if you have multiple players in your virtual sales calls, and already communicate the rules. If you have a larger audience, mute your phones and so forth, cut out background noise. If that you need to have some rules. All this communication stuff needs to be up front. How about during the meeting? Start on time, be respectful. People have back-to-back virtual calls these days. Start on time, double check on time availability they have. And when you get started, do quick introductions around and have a little bit of a short icebreaker going. Have you been on those calls? I mean, it's really funny, right? When they say, get on the call, hi, John, how are you? I'm fine, thanks, how are you? That's not an icebreaker. That's not building relationship. That's a phrase, let's get this done and let's get it out of the way. I'm more than busy than ever. How about this? Have a little short icebreaker or a chit chat ready to go. Hey, John, nice to virtually meet you. Thank you for asking. You know, I had a really nice weekend. The weather here in Austria was fabulous, about 25 degrees, and I went for a nice bike ride with my kids, and I cannot believe how well they did. They mastered about 40 kilometers of a bike ride without complaining. It was a miracle. Thanks for asking. How are you? What do you think is going to come back? I'm fine, thanks. No, they will start to share, some a little bit more, but you got to be ready to do it first. You got to go first and set an example. You are leading that sales call, and then you get it back. Deal with late joiners, which means if somebody joins a few minutes late, bring it up to speed. Hey, Steve, thanks for making it. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so late. Until now, we have done quick introductions. We started the meeting on that topic and we discussed 1, 2, 3. Let's move on. Deal with late joiners and bringing them up to speed. The purpose, communicate the purpose and delivery, share the agenda again and gain the agreement, and review again the ground rules if that is the case. Good. Further during the meeting, people, dress up. How often have I been on a sales call, a virtual sales call, and people turn up in their t-shirt, in their sportswear, their hair is all messy. I know some people haven't gone to the hairdresser for a while, but there's some ways to get this done. You are not going to your customers in your pajamas, are you? Put on a shirt. Nobody cares what you're wearing underneath, but you gotta appear professional. No stripes, no pattern, too distracting on a virtual sales call. Encourage participation. Call them out by their names. Call them ask for their opinion and so forth. Gain commitment for the next step. So, John, you mentioned you were going to do this. I would like you to complete this by X date. Seek feedback at the end. Review the schedule again and get feedback from people and schedule the next meeting there and then. How often have I heard, yes, let's get back together and end of next week and I'll email you about dates beginning of the weeks. They're all on the call. Guys, I'm free next Thursday at 3 o'clock. Does that work on you? Quickly open your calendar. Use that advantage. Take it. You would think it's straightforward and people do it? No, do it. And end of time, be respectful. They have another meeting. After the meeting, what do you need to do? People never do that. Unbelievable. Send them a meeting summary. John, thank you for your time today. Today we've discussed topic XYZ. Your needs are XYZ, and what we've agreed is action item, and I'm going to do this action item by this date. Follow up. There is a lack of that part in many sales conversations, even face-to-face, but even more important, virtually. Right. So we know now the tech. We have planned for how to run it. Now it's time to take control of the sales call, of the virtual call, and engage people effectively. How do we do this? Grabbing attention, differentiating yourself, get them to think a little bit differently, and get them to consider and summarize and close for action, as we said. Let's start with the first one. How do you grab attention? Well, it's a tool that we call the virtual hook. Great. The virtual hook is designed for getting people's attention quickly down to the point. It is used at the beginning. This is what we need to talk about. And it positions the value of the meeting for the customer. It focuses only on the customer's outcome. It is not a pitch for you, for your products or solutions, or for your company. Really challenge yourself. Get out of your comfort zone. Not talk about you, yourself, and what you want to talk about. The virtual hook needs to be about their outcomes, what they need to achieve. Really difficult thing for salespeople to do, but even more important virtually. It positions the sales process advantageously. It's got to be short and memorable, because when John talks to Jenny tomorrow in the office, not in the office, they're not in the office, when John talks to Jenny virtually tomorrow, and Jenny asks John, hey, you spoke with Harry yesterday, what was the meeting about? John needs to repeat those two things of my virtual hook and tells Jenny, that's when it was a good hook, when he or she remembers it, and they only can do it when it's short and memorable, easy, repeatable, and of course it's got to be appealing to the buyer's needs, and it is not your elevator pitch about your company, your product, or yourself. It's delivered confidently. If you want to stand up, you have a stand-up desk. I'm very fortunate to have that in my home office. Stand-up desk, fabulous. Even more body language, and you can deliver even more comfortably. Let me give you 3 examples drawn out of the sky of a good virtual hook, so you can place them a little bit. Okay. Your company is undergoing an important digital systems and process transformation. This meeting today is going to be about how we help to equip your team to become strategic partners to increase employee engagement by 15%. Or this call today is about how we can increase your company's productivity rate by 12% to contribute to your overall goal of 10% total cost of ownership saving. As you can see, there is a couple of interesting number plays in it. It gets people to focus on what is important to them. Notice I'm not talking about me, my solution. I'm talking about them and their outcome. Get them to focus. Or for example, last one, the goal of this meeting is to help your people to continue to engage with clients while home office based, and deal with disengaged and distracted customers to really achieve your win rate of 51%. It's all about you. It's all about the customer. It's not about me. So a good hook, people, this is what you need to do before your next virtual meeting. Do your research. What is the outcome that you want to create? Create the virtual hook. If you can trim some words away, do it. Less is more. You got to practice these things. It is in your head. It is clear. It's intellectually sound. We get it. When the pressure is on, when tension hits, when it is go on a virtual meeting, the virtual hook needs to come out seamlessly, flawlessly, and like a well-oiled machine. It is here. It is positioned. It is done really well. You got to practice it. You got to prepare it, and you got to write it down. Engage them immediately, repeat them, and if you want some help with your hooks, one slide too far, if you want your help with some hooks, send us an email with your hook to virtualhook@globalperformancegroup.com. My people will be reviewing and giving you feedback on your hook to help you for your next meeting. Fabulous. How do you differentiate yourself now? Next topic is, you know, people are talking about on a virtual call and also on face-to-face call, but even more virtual, about the same old rubbish that nobody wants to hear. And I'm sure you've been on some sort of sales training, and I'm sure you've seen 1,000 icebergs models just like that. But come with me on that journey, because it gets a little bit deeper here. Once, everybody talks in once, right? We are taught to get to the need of the customer, right? We can differentiate a want and a need, right? Is that clear? I want a better price. I want better delivery times. I want this, I want that. Everybody talks in one. The good salespeople are asking, what is the need behind the want, right? I give you an example. I want a glass of milk. You can only satisfy the want with one thing, with the actual want. So I want a glass of milk, can only be satisfied with the glass of milk. If I ask why, what's the need? I say, I actually have a calcium deficiency. I could satisfy that calcium deficiency with some broccoli, with a calcium-rich drink, or with some banana, anything else that has calcium in it. So there's always a need behind the want. But you know all this, right? You know all this. The good people, especially virtually, are focusing on a new set of needs. Undiscovered needs are the needs that the customer doesn't know he or she has. So you are developing and generating a new set of needs, needs that are undiscovered in the mind of the customer. Unconsidered needs are the needs that the customer has had no idea that you and your company can help them with. They haven't considered you as a potential solution for it. Or underappreciated need is the need that the customer has never appreciated and didn't know it can have an impact on the bottom line and their business. If you really want to differentiate, don't talk about wants. Don't be like any other salesperson and find out the needs that you should know anyway already. Dig even deeper to the undiscovered, unconsidered, underappreciated needs. So what do you need to do before your next virtual meeting? Do your research. It sounds like a broken record. You got to do your research about them, what you know. And then here is the key. Plan to generate, not find out. Plan to generate new needs in the mind of the buyer through the unconsidered, undiscovered, and underappreciated need set. And therefore, differentiate yourself and don't be like everybody else. Get them to think is the next topic. Now, if I have to differentiate myself with a different set of needs, and I in my mind have to generate those needs, I have to differentiate myself by not asking the same old rubbish questions that everybody else is asking. You see, the problem with questions is that when people ask questions, those questions provide zero value to the actual client. They're only good for you to confirm, quite honestly, what you should know already. You have to create a questioning environment where you get them to think of things that they haven't thought about. You have to challenge their thinking a little bit, but not by go in and tell them what they need to do, those tell mentalities that some training companies and other organizations are implementing right now. It is to get them yourself, but you have to therefore ask provocative striker questions. We call them the virtual strikers. There are 5 of them: challenge, shock, rank, compare. Challenge is provide a reality check by confronting them with something. Shock is exploring for them the worst case scenario by asking them about the worst possible outcomes. Rank is identify, prioritizing, and organizing their wish list in their mind. It gets them to think about it. Compare and analyze the resulting hierarchy of values of comparing and contrasting to any other solution, or fast forward to an ideal result that you can help them achieve in the future. I'm bringing up here a slide now with some example, which is here. I'm not going to read them out. You can take a picture if you want. These are a general example for any of those questions. The point is, guys, Don't be like everybody else, especially in a virtual environment. Differentiate yourself by getting them to think about things that they haven't thought of. But don't tell them. If you tell them something, then they will resist to open up. The cool thing with these virtual strikers is they create a level of uncomfortableness. But that's where we need to be. That's where we need to reside on. That's why we have to get out of our comfort zone in order to get to that level so the customer thinks about things that they haven't thought of before. So, your next meeting, think about it. Here is the thing. Think about which need you want to generate and then ask the questions around that and get them to think about something different. Those questions, believe me, I've seen many good salespeople. Not a lot of them are that good to come up with that question during tension in front of the screen and the camera pointing at them in a virtual meeting. Practice them, prepare for them. And that will provide you the confidence that you need to ask them in those tension situations. Get them to think with different strikers. If you have strikers and you want to try it out, striker@globalperformance.com, send us your question. My team will give you feedback on how good or not good is that question. Get them to consider, great, in this time, it's really, really difficult. They are not spending money. They are in lockdown. A lot of companies have fired or had to lay off people or furlough people. You know, nobody knows where to go. Some countries are more loosening up now than others with this already due to the situation now. Our job is to get them to consider, and how do we do this? Get them to consider about something that they haven't thought of before. When they don't buy, we need to create demand. We need to create a demand in the mind of the buyer. Besides engaging with the customer, our job is to create that strong demand. In our industry, everybody always talks about the why change dialogue. Why should I change to you? If I don't have strong enough reason to change, I will stay where I'm safe, where I'm comfortable, and where I'm familiar. The pain of changing is greater than the pain of the current situation. I want to avoid the pain. I stay where I am. Thank you very much. I'm comfortable. Therefore, we need to create the demand. When I hear things like solution selling, for example, everybody talks about it and all this innovative stuff. Well, you can only solution sell if you create a problem first, right? You got to create the problem. You got to create the demand. They need to see why they have to change. So what buyers, and research from, I think it's CB, I believe it was the top 5 buyers. What are the top five things that buyers value most? Is two of the top 5, shall I say, are gaining new insights. So bring me something new that I didn't know and help me to make a decision. Top 5 of what buyers value most in the relationship of our clients. It is about gaining that insight and helping the customer to make the decision by doing the preparation and sharing strong enough insights, strong enough, our term is nuggets of value. How do I provide them little nuggets of value along the way during the virtual dialogue? We create demand, and therefore they consider something different. And we get them to move and increasing the pain of staying. So in order to get them to consider something different, we got to share new insights, and we got to help them make the decision by creating the demand through nuggets of value, which is insights about marketplace, industry, or competitors, business challenges that people may have and they haven't known about, some industry innovation ideas for creativity, shall I rather say, new things that I can bring to the table that the customer didn't know that exist, potential problems, pitfalls to avoid with alternatives, preferably from your solution. different innovation ideas and thoughts, cost-saving opportunities, new ways of working with other suppliers, for example. There is a number of different nuggets of value that you can share, but you got to do, surprise, surprise, the research. You got to plan. Not every nugget is the right nugget for everybody. Plan for the nugget. Think about the customer or the prospect you want to share this with, where you create that demand. Get them to consider and create demand through your nugget of value. I'm sure your marketing department has a number of nuggets. If they don't have it, ask for them. It's their job to provide that to you. Part of that job, should I say. So we have engaged virtually. We have planned. We know the tech. We know exactly how we run the logistics of the sales call before, during, and after. We grabbed their attention through the virtual hook. We differentiated ourselves by not asking the same old rubbish questions and get them to think about something different, and with greater demand. So we got to summarize and close for action. Very simple tool, very effective. Got to check for understanding periodically during your virtual meeting. You're going to gain agreement and clear up any issues proactively, and summarize the findings and agreement, and suggest and agree on next steps with clear roles and time frame and time frames attached to it. So know the tech, plan for it, take control, and engage. David promised you 40 to 45 minutes. I believe I kept exactly to 45 minutes before we are open for Q&A. Before I do this, I'd like to point you to our webinar series that are 4 different ones, which is building value in a difficult environment, or protecting margin, or how do you deal with those nasty, bad procurement people and professional buyers, and how do you understand them even better? Or how do you engage the C-level also in a virtual environment? Before we go to Q&A, you see a Q&R code on the screen. If you would like to join a closed LinkedIn group where graduates and participants of our content have been through, hold your phone over it with your photo app. It will take you to LinkedIn. Apply. We will accept you to join the group. In the group, we will post different tips and tricks about selling, negotiating, dealing with procurement and professional buyers, all these wonderful topics. If you wish, let me now, as promised, ask David and to see if there are any questions that have occurred.
Hello, Harry, and welcome. I am looking for some questions on the chat for everyone who, if you have any questions, please feel free to send those out. And we have one question here that says, I want to get them involved. I want to get them involved during a virtual meeting, but all participants are passive. How do you deal with that?
Okay, that's a good question. I'm sure you've been in some of those virtual calls, right? When you do present and try to sell and so forth, and nobody's saying anything. That awkward silence is there. You know, again, I don't have under control how people react. What I can control is my actions and how I adapt to it. And I think calling people out by their names, asking people for their opinion. Don't ever ask a closed questions. Are there any questions? Well, of course there are none. Get people's views, call their name out. For example, hey John, you know, this is an interesting topic. Can you give me your opinion on the topic? How does your company work with this topic? How do you deal with that issue? Or, you know, what is your experience with this, John? You know, John, I really need your help and get your thoughts on this topic. I'd really like to get your take. Keep asking in a variety of ways, but again, prepare for this. ask for the opinion. Don't ask a closed question. Get their view. Ask them how it works at their company, or what is it that their experience is. Ask them for help. People are really responsive when you reach out and say, help me here and provide me your thoughts. You will get an answer. So keep at it. There's a rule of 3. You got to ask the same questions 3 times, but in a different way. The rule says after the 3rd time, you will get one, even with the most stubborn ones, okay? So my advice there is have different ways of asking the same question ready to get them involved and call them out by their names.
Perfect, thank you. I have 2 questions kind of related to the same topic, I believe.
Okay.
The question on chat, the first question is, what is a good way to get attention through emails that can lead to a meeting? And that's the first one. Related to an answer, Harry, is a question here. I like the idea of a virtual hook. You mentioned this should be used at the beginning of the call. Can it be used later on too? I think the 2 are related. Work away.
Thank you, David, and they're both very good questions. The email piece, the virtual hook, is as applicable with it. It grabs attention. It's just that in a written format. I would make sure that in the email format, it is much, much shorter. Think about how many people try to sell to you and how many emails you get. You read your tagline and maybe the first sentence. What's the research? There's on average a 1% response rate on marketing emails and sales email that go out. So that hook has to be the same principle, right? It's got to be outcomes focused, what's about you and not about me. I can't tell you how many emails I get with saying, oh, I'm sure you want to create more leads in the first sentence. Last week, probably 200 with the same sentence. So you really have to, in those first few words, outcome and use your hook. And the second question, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, it's related. Sorry. Here we are.
It used to be mentioned later, I think it was, right?
Sure. Big virtual hook at the beginning of the call. Can it be used later on too?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. The cool thing with a virtual hook, but you have to nail that in your preparation, is anytime you not just introduce and position the call and the reason for the call early, anytime you need to bring the focus back to the actual outcomes of the call, the actual outcomes for the customer or prospect, you can repeat this. When attention sort of drifts away a little bit, when people are focusing on something else and is talking about different topics, yes, great. Let me get back to what we're here to talk about, which is how do we increase or decrease total cost of ownership by 10%. So even during the meeting, great way to get them refocused on the topic. Absolutely, get them back on track. Thank you. Good question.
Perfect. So we have a question here. Customers are reluctant to spend money during COVID-19. How do you deal with that fact and what can we do?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the number one question on everybody's lips right now, right? They're not spending, how we can get them to spend. I think, it's something a lot of industries are having to deal with right now. And first of all, let's go back to what I said at the beginning of this webinar. We should only focus on what we can influence. Can we influence the pandemic? No. Can we influence the fact that they have a spending freeze, let's say, to a certain extent, but not all of it? What we can influence is how we are a value-added partner to our clients or prospects and start the process of engaging. Start the process of sharing different pieces of information. Start the process of sharing nuggets of value. Start the process of generating a new set of needs, creating that demand by being an innovative partner. And through this, I'm sort of priming the opportunity as we go along so that when things loosen up, and they will, we're at the forefront of their mind and thinking. So focus on what we can change and influence, which is how we engage, how we provide ongoing value to those prospect and customers. And I think, you know, it's not a case of I call you when I want to sell you something. And I think that's the sort of the out of your comfort zone experience with this, is we have to proactively provide value even in the short term when there isn't a big spending prize at the end. It will be again, and then we'll be at the forefront of things.
Perfect. Thank you, Harry. Another question from, I'll say Vijay. Harry, you rightfully mentioned that a lot of our customers are facing very difficult business situations themselves. Using challenge and shock questions in the current state of affairs, is it still recommended approach?
Well, that's a very good question. I still have to challenge their thinking, and I think I go back also to the 55, 38 at 7%. It always depends how I say things. I can say, hey, Vijay, you know, if you don't buy this, then in 3 months' time, your spend will go up, and your goal of 51% client retention will even further drop below the 30% that it is right now. What are you going to do about it? Well, is that going to work? No, of course not. But what I could say is, and still challenge the other party is, well, you know, Vijay, this is difficult times for everybody, and you still have the issues of coming up to 51% retention rate that you need to achieve. Let's work collaboratively together on how we can help you achieve this, because if you don't, I mean, that's not going to be that's not going to be a good business case for you, yourself, and your team by the end of the year, right? In essence, I still challenge the other party, but you got to challenge with humility a little bit. You got to challenge their thinking with it, and not just shock and challenge for the sake of challenging. This whole challenge piece, and there is training courses and what have you built around this, and some of this stuff is really good. What I disagree with is it still has to be an ongoing dialogue. The relationship part is still an important piece. Do we need to challenge the client's thinking? 100%, but not by telling them what they're doing wrong, but maybe asking a question in a way that still gets them to challenge their thinking and engage them in a dialogue with it. Great question, Vijay, though. Thank you.
Okay, Harry, thank you. We have another one. Lots of questions here. Thanks, everybody. Keep them coming. How do I get board participants more involved?
All right. Board participants. I hope this isn't a reflection of the last 45 minutes that I just did, first of all, whoever asked it, though. You know, board participants, I think the engagement part is key. Asking the questions, as I mentioned, getting people's opinion, getting different people to speak up, taking the time to listen to their opinion. You know, we haven't even touched on, if you choose to share a PowerPoint, or if this is the way you're selling virtually, then how do we engage them more with more visuals? How do I tell a story around a picture and so forth? There is certain ways of how I do it. I don't believe there is a one sentence, one word answer. I think it's a combination of the skills that we have talked about, some of the tools with the visuals that you are using, and calling them out, getting people's opinion and really engage them in the conversation. So, and, you know, in the end of the day, can you save everybody? Can you win every single deal? No, you can't. If somebody is completely shut off and bored, then maybe I haven't done my work up front. Maybe it's not the right prospect. Maybe they don't have budget. Maybe they don't have the pain enough and willingness to change at that stage. Then I should be spending my valuable time somewhere else.
Perfect, thank you. Karthi asks, yes, I agree ice breaking is important, but mostly clients got no time for it. Let's say it's a tender presentation and it's based on an allocated time frame. They ask us to go directly to the point. What would you suggest?
Good. I would suggest at least, even if you can't do an icebreaker, and I'm not suggesting any games and that sort of stuff. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting is sharing some personal pieces of information of yourself. Even if they say, great, let's get to the point, then there's always an introduction round, right? And with the introduction round, if we go in at the most, how do I say this, closed off participant saying, hey, I'm Harry, I'm the CEO, and I'm here to listen what you have to say, right? Happens sometimes. Have some questions about, well, thank you, Harry. You know, I've heard a lot about you and I've done some research about you. And I understand that one of your issues is that you want to protect margin and you want to, it's the business issues and the personal issues. I've done some research and I know you're based in Salzburg in Austria. It's a beautiful city. I've been there. Which part do you live in? And I also know that margin protection is a key issue. Why is that? So have a couple of, you don't want to have a long-winded conversation with this, but a couple of short, down to the point question, one personal, one business, sort of loosens the situation up a bit.
Perfect. And I'm noticing the time, Harry. So we have time for one more question, I think. You talked about, in quotes, getting them to think, your way of questions, striker questions, I think, and I'm reading this verbatim. Those sounds like they're difficult to ask. How are they different from typical questioning technique?
I love that question. Thank you, Beta, I think who asked it, whoever it was. Thank you. You know, I'm so passionate about this because I believe really strongly that a very common mistake that many salespeople make is they're planning the part of questioning by asking themselves, what is it that I want to find out from the customer? What is it that I need to know from them? You know, let's find out, let's ask him or her this or that question to really understand and get this. I disagree. I think that's mediocre salespeople's behavior, because all you're doing is you are confirming in the mind of the buyer the need that they know they already had, and you're adding no value. They're just confirming to you what, quite honestly, you should know already. What I believe is that we thinking about this in a different way. We need them to get to think differently. And the way we need to get them to think differently is to have the goal in mind first. What is the need that I want to develop in the mind of the buyer? What is it the need that I need to generate in their thinking? What is it that I need to nudge them? We talked about unconsidered, underappreciated, those sort of needs. And I need to really awake, create, and generate in the mind of the buyer exactly that. Rather than telling them and using this tell approach, we recommend that we ask these thought-provoking, we call them strikers, to get the customer to think about needs that they may not have considered or appreciated. For that way, we are generating a new need, rather than finding out what, quite honestly, you should know already anyway. So we are providing value through asking these tough questions. But I tell you, last week we've had a number of virtual training sessions with a couple of very big companies, and it's one thing to get this stuff intellectually. It's another thing to do it. It is challenging to do that, and I really need to sit down, think it through from the other way. What is the need that I need to generate? And then create the question that generates that need in the mind of the buyer. I want to be respectful of your time. I can't say you have to end on time in my presentation, and I don't end on time myself. I want to say thank you to David. I want to say thank you to everybody who has been on the call. I really appreciate your interest. And if you're interested in implementing a strong virtual selling culture to lift motivation of your people, create a better customer engagement within your organizations, you know how to contact us, you know how to find us. We'll be in touch following up with you with a recording of this. I believe during the recording you can switch off my camera because nobody wants to see me more than an hour. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Happy virtual selling. All the best to you. Thank you so much.